Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Jose from Florida Hood Blogs. Let's pour a little hood into your morning coffee. Today, we're going to be talking about the drug epidemic in Florida. It seems like methamphetamine has started to become popular throughout rural North Florida and other parts of the state. So we're going to break it down. I also made some maps to show you guys what counties in Florida are having the most trouble with these particular drugs. I just came back from a trip all over Florida. You guys are going to see all the videos that I'm going to be uploading. I went all around the state of Florida, and I noticed this topic has to get touched, the drug problem, because it's so prevalent in the state of Florida, and so many of these small towns are struggling with this problem. So the information that I'm giving you guys is on the field, what I talk to people in small towns about, what they're concerned about. So this isn't stuff I picked up off the internet. This is straight from the ground. This is what's going on in Florida right now. According to people on the ground, methamphetamine is being produced in the backwoods in Florida in remote locations. I understood that drugs like methamphetamine were now being brought from Mexico in large volumes and that the production in small rural places had stopped. However, according to people on the ground, these drugs are still being produced in rural and isolated areas throughout the state of Florida. This is the first map we're going to look at, and it's just going to break down the general areas in Florida when it comes to drugs. We're going to start from the bottom. At the bottom of the map, you have Miami. Miami is a large city, as you know, and cocaine and all types of drugs are there. Flocka, which is a drug that was very horrible. I seen it myself when I was working in South Miami. It is absolutely horrible. You'll see people on the middle of the street screaming their heads off, and it's terrible to watch. But that drug has been popular in Miami, which is the red. And then you have in the north, a little bit north of Miami, you have Broward and Palm Beach counties. They're in the green. Now, those two counties are a mix of drugs. All types of drugs are there. And those two counties also have some problems with Flocka, especially Broward County. You'll see it on the street. I don't know how prevalent it is currently, but definitely when I was there a few years ago, it was a huge problem. Methamphetamine, all types of drugs. These counties are infested with drugs, and the overdose and statistics will let you know that Broward and Palm Beach County are absolutely filled with drugs, and people in those counties are living with it day by day. In Broward County, it is not unusual for somebody to approach you at a gas station or anywhere in town asking for money, asking to borrow your phone. In Broward County, even in the nicer areas, you're going to encounter homeless people everywhere begging for money. It's horrible, and like I said, it's a huge mix of drugs in those counties. The next is Southwest Florida, the areas that you see in purple. Now, these areas, there's a lot of money in cocaine and marijuana, especially high-grade marijuana, are the two top drugs of choice. These may be wealthy areas, but there is a huge drug problem in these counties. Manatee, Sarasota, Lee, Collier County. These counties are infested with drugs as well. However, because people have so much money, they're able to subdue the obvious symptoms of the drug use, so you will not notice that these people are on drugs. However, the sale of legal marijuana and illegal cocaine and illegal marijuana as well is everywhere. If I just took a ride through Fort Myers and Lehigh Acres, which is in Lee County, and late at night on a weekend, and everywhere you go, you can smell marijuana. If there's people gathered in a group, there's marijuana being smoked. And cocaine is also huge in these counties, as well as in Dade County. We're also going to look at a cocaine map. But in these areas there in the purple, cocaine and high-grade marijuana is the drugs of choice. And you will notice that people are able to afford these drugs. So obviously, they're not going to be using heroin. They're not going to be using methamphetamine. These are wealthy areas, and people are able to afford higher quality drugs. In the Sarasota area, definitely people are having a huge problem with the opioid epidemic. Heroin, opiate, all that stuff is a huge problem, and they're having a massive problem with overdoses in Sarasota County. And next, in the center of the state, in the north, you see the black areas. That's Ocala and Gainesville. These are college towns, so they have a drug problem. Especially, they're nice areas, they're not bad areas, but they're college and party towns. So in those areas, that's the type of situation you have. Right, also on the southwest corner, you see the gray area. That's Tampa, and that's also Port Charlotte. That area has a mix of everything. There's not one particular thing going on. It's just a huge mix, in that gray area, those two counties there. Then you have in the yellow, Pasco and Hernando County, where drugs are at an epidemic level. Pasco County probably has one of the worst drug problems in the state. Newport Richey, Hudson, Holiday, these areas are really struggling. It seems like methamphetamine and heroin are the main things going on there. They're not very rich areas. They're middle class areas, so or normal people, so they're not having access to the high grade drugs. So it seems like it's a mix of opiates and a mix of methamphetamine in this area. And you will notice in that area, everywhere you go, people hanging out, people just leaning on a sidewalk, all that stuff. Pasco County has a horrible drug problem, and in Hernando County, in Pasco County, you'll even notice that there's open drug markets in some neighborhoods. So it's really bad in that area, and it's probably one of the worst areas in the state. In the orange, you have the Orlando and Daytona Beach area. There's a lot of drugs there. There's a lot of homelessness. There's methamphetamine. There's heroin. There's cocaine. There's a little bit of everything in that area, and that's another area where you'll notice a lot of drug use, especially around the Daytona and in Orlando along Highway 50. It's horrible. It's one of the worst drives in the state. I've never seen so many homeless people. That area is really struggling, and there's a huge problem there. In the baby blue, you have Levy and Dixie County. I was just in this area, and it is really sad. In the town of Trenton, there was a lot of police presence downtown. I don't know if there was a particular operation. I just think that the police were really cracking down in some areas, which has made the users flee into deeper and more remote backwards areas to do whatever they're doing. But Levy County and Dixie County, it's really sad what's going on there. Methamphetamine is definitely the problem there. You'll see people it's so sad to see these people in the condition they're in. How do people get on this drug when they know what it leads to? I just don't get it. And to a smaller extent, that pushes over into Marion and Citrus County. But Levy and Dixie County, the meth problem is really huge there. It's horrible, and it's happening mostly because of how remote and small and isolated some of these communities are. In the green is the entire north part of Florida, other than along the coast. I know in Baker County, which is right outside of Jacksonville, they're having a huge problem in some of those towns, Perry, Florida, and I've been through some of the rural roads heading north of Panama City, and I saw a woman that was in the back of a pickup truck full of blood, and she got beat, and we tried to stop her. We tried to help her escape, and it was horrible. This was about 3 years ago. We were heading to New Orleans, and we wanted to go all along the coast of Florida, see all those little towns. When we got to Panama City, we decided too much traffic, so we were going to get back on I-10. And on the way there, on some of those rural roads, we ran into this girl in the back of a pickup truck covered in blood. We tried to help her escape. There's two males that were driving the truck and a passenger. We got them to stop the vehicle, and another person that was in a camper, I guess they're tourists as well. We tried to convince the girl to get back off the truck and come with us, so the people in the camper, and the girl decided to get back into the truck with the guys that were beating her. She was covered in blood from head to toe. It was horrible. It was the most violent thing that I've ever seen in the state of Florida, and it happened out there. So I don't know that area very well. There's so many counties up there, but I did explore Dixie and Levy County. That's why I'm elaborating on those counties. So in Baker County, I was up there as well, and I saw that they have a huge problem. So that's pretty much that. I'm not going to elaborate too much on that part of the state because, like I said, it's been a while. It's been about 3 years since I've been up that way. But I'm sure it's just based off what I saw in Baker County, what I saw in Levy County, and what I saw in Dixie County, that whole area of the state is horrible. Now, I am familiar with the Georgia side, and in the Georgia side, they don't seem to have that much of a drug problem. So it does seem like once you cross into Georgia, it's not as bad as in Florida. It's a Florida thing. For some reason, Georgia's a little bit different. There they sell marijuana in a lot larger volumes, and it seems that people smoke more marijuana as a drug of choice. Also in Georgia, you can open carry weapons, so it's a different state, different laws, different economy. So all that contributes to when you cross over into Georgia, it's not as bad as in Florida. Also, the demographics are a little bit different. South Georgia seems to be about 40% African American. There's a lot more of agriculture work, so you have migrant workers. So it's totally different. So it does seem like, in general, it's a Florida thing. Like I said, I'm not 100% positive on what causes the demographics to be that way. Now, what we're looking at here, this is a bathroom, and in this bathroom, you'll notice this in really messed up areas that are having a lot of trouble with the drugs. They'll punch a hole in the wall. You can see blood on the floor. They'll punch a hole in the wall with a knife. They'll stick toilet paper and bubble gum, and you can see right in the center where they are injecting the needles, and they do that to clean the needles. So if they're injecting heroin, I would guess, I don't know, whatever drug they're injecting into themselves, they'll punch a hole into the wall in the bathroom, and they'll stick bubble gum and toilet paper, and you can see the hole for the needle. So that is one way you can tell if an area is really bad. You go to the bathroom, and if you see that they've been patching up holes on the walls, it probably means that people have been punching holes in the walls to stick toilet paper and stuff, and it helps them clean their needles while they're injecting drugs. I did notice that in some of the areas that I traveled in rural Florida, if you walk into a gas station bathroom, right away the attendant goes to the bathroom and knocks on the door and says, hey, you're going to be quick, whatever, because I guess people shoot up drugs and then they fall asleep in the bathroom or something. I don't know, but that's one thing you can look out for if you're looking to move into a rural area in Florida. Check out the local gas stations, and if you see that they've been patching up holes in the bathroom, it probably means that people have been injecting drugs or using that bathroom or that area to inject drugs. So that's one thing to look out for. I like to go to dead-end streets and see the garbage piles, and that gives you a lot of indication of what's going on in an area. A lot of these counties, it's only $20 a ton or $25, $30 a ton to get rid of garbage. So when you go into a rural county and you notice on dead ends or dirt roads that there's a lot of littering, actual dumping, actually not littering, if there's a lot of dumping, people are dumping a lot of garbage, it's probably not a good sign because it is really affordable to get rid of garbage in Florida. So if people are dumping $5 worth of garbage and they're risking a felony to throw out $5 worth of garbage, it probably means that there's a lot of crime in the area. So that's one way that I like to do it. And also you'll find heroin needles, you'll find all types of stuff. So one of the best ways if you're looking to move to a rural place in Florida is to really scope out the place. Look for those dirt roads where people are dumping garbage, and that'll give you a huge indication of what's going on kind of in the shadows in the background of a place. Now, in Southwest Florida, the meth thing has not taken off other than North Fort Myers and some parts of Port Charlotte, but for the most part, methamphetamine is not a problem in Southwest Florida. Now, the city of Fort Myers is crime-ridden. This was, what you're looking at here, was in Dunellen, Florida, which is in Marion County. Driving in some of these rural places, it's crazy because there's so many accidents. People drive like they're, I don't know why they drive so crazy. The people are really friendly, and that's what really hurts the most about the drug problem is that how friendly these people are. I'm going to say that for the most part, that area that's really struggling in Florida, which is like the Nature Coast, are some of the friendliest people in Florida. There's really good people out there. However, unfortunately, the drugs have really taken over some of these communities, and it's really sad because they're really good people. They're friendly. They open doors for you. They ask you how you're doing. When they ask you how you're doing, they're not just greeting you. They're actually interested in how you're doing. Are you okay? You know, how are you actually doing? It's very personal. And it's really, it's sad that just really good people out there. You know, there's beautiful farmlands. There's people who are actually trying to live off the land out there, and they have to deal with these problems nonstop. So back to Southwest Florida, like I said, other than North Fort Myers, which is a really bad area for drugs, in the city of Bonita Springs, I work a lot. In the city of Naples, I work a lot. And where I've noticed meth in Southwest Florida, other than North Fort Myers and the city of Fort Myers, has been in the city of Bonita Springs and Everglades City and Goodland. Everglades City and Goodland are small little really remote communities in the absolute middle of nowhere. Maybe Copeland, which is another small community, has issues too. It really seems to be a small town thing. But back to Bonita Springs. In Bonita Springs, I cleaned out a property, and on this property, I'm pretty sure there was a meth lab. And I shussed about, when they tell you that meth labs are dangerous, they're explosive, they are not kidding. In the process of cleaning out this property, I hit a tank which I thought was empty, and apparently even if there's only a really small amount of liquid, there was petroleum, diesel inside of a large like drum, and I hit it to open a hole in it, because when you take it to the landfill, if it doesn't have a hole in it, they won't let you dump it. Well, I figured it was just a small amount of liquid that was at the bottom that I could actually hit it with something, and this thing exploded like a bomb because it was diesel. So yeah, these meth labs are super dangerous, And the one that I cleaned up the property in Bonita Springs was actually not for personal use. This was a really large scale operation, and I think they were using what they call the shake and bake. So definitely, it's still being made locally. This was in the last year, so it's still being made locally, and these things are super dangerous. And a lot of times, the people who are cleaning out the properties don't even know what they're dealing with, and they can really get hurt. So I've noticed that problem in Bonita Springs. I also cleaned out some properties in Everglades City and in Goodland, where you could totally tell that there was being methamphetamine used and produced likely. So it's a problem. Now, this is what we're looking at here is Williston Heights or Williston Highlands. I'm not sure, but it's a rural area outside of Williston, Florida, which is a nice little town. And in this area, there's a lot of dirt roads. There's a lot of really secluded places, and it seems like to have a place where stuff could actually go down. These are the type of places where you definitely want to avoid if you can. And if you're going to buy a property, you need to really scope out the neighborhood and make sure that there's no issues going on. Like I said, I would check the gas stations. I would talk to the neighbors. They're usually pretty upfront. If there's a problem in the area, they will tell you. We have had problems with drugs, people stealing our stuff. They'll tell you. So you talk to people, they'll give you a real insight on the area. A lot of times when the area is really bad, you say hi to people, they don't wave at you or they stare you down. That's a really bad sign. Usually in these rural communities, if you approach somebody, they will talk to you and they'll give you whatever information you need. They're bored out of their minds. They want to talk to people. When you go into some of these communities, I noticed in Otter Creek was one of those communities where the people will not even say hi to you. In Old Town was another place where I noticed that you'll know for a fact when you go into one of these places where there's bad stuff going on, they don't want to talk to you, they don't want to give you eye contact, they're just not interested in greeting you or anything like that. And if you notice that, that's probably a sign that they don't want you there. Sometimes they'll even tell you, hey, why are you back here? If you don't live here, don't come here. Or, hey, why don't you go over there to that part of town? That's where the tourists go. So if you notice stuff like that, it's probably a really bad sign. So this is the cocaine map. We're not going to talk too much about cocaine. Cocaine is for rich people who can afford it. These are the counties where you'll see the most cocaine use: Orlando, Tampa, Sarasota, Lee, Corler, and Dade County. This is where most of the cocaine use is at. Some of these people are so rich they can actually afford that habit. So we're not going to talk too much about the cocaine because cocaine is one of those things that doesn't really affect other people because the people who are using it have money. So it doesn't really affect your livelihood, but it is a huge problem in these counties that we're looking at here. Okay, so the next map we're going to look at here is the meth map. These are the counties where I've noticed that there is meth being used. Now, that doesn't mean that there isn't meth in the other areas. These are just the counties where you're going to look out for that. If you're looking to move into Florida, these are the counties where you want to watch out for it the most. I didn't want to include too much around the Jacksonville area. I'm sure there's meth labs and all that out there, but for the most part, there's St. Johns County, which is a really nice area. And other than Baker County, should have probably been on this list because they definitely have it, which is right outside of Jacksonville. But these are the counties where you want to look out for the meth problem. Baker County, I should have put on the red there. But, and it's not all of Baker County, it's just some specific parts. The more rural areas really seem to be getting hit out there with that problem. And that's pretty much a trend with the whole meth thing in Florida. With the exception of like Palm Beach County, Broward County, the Newport Richey area, North Fort Myers, those are urban areas, and Spring Hill, they're urban areas that are having that problem. So there are a few urban areas that have that problem, and definitely Orlando and Daytona Beach as well. Now, on my last trip to North Florida, I did talk to one person. I was fishing at a boat ramp, and there was somebody there. I was just fishing like for a while. I was just hanging out fishing, and a girl came up to me, and she was taking her, I think it was her brother and her sister who were younger, her cousin or nephew or something, but they were all family, and they were fishing, and I started talking to this girl, and she started telling me about how methamphetamine ruined her life. She was like, hey, I'm a regular person just like you. I have dreams. I had aspirations. I wanted to work. I wanted a husband. I wanted a life. I wanted to have a company. I wanted a business. There's so many things that I wanted. I wanted to go to school. I wanted to be a nurse. I had all these dreams, and this drug has totally ruined my life. And these are real people. You know, like a lot of times people just overlook the drug addicts and just toss them aside like they're the refuse of society. But these are real people, and I've noticed that they're friendly too. And I've had the opportunity to talk to a few people. A lot of them are in denial; they don't want to accept the reality of the situations. But some of them are struggling, and they'll admit it. And they had dreams; they didn't want to be the way they are. They wanted to do so much more with their lives. So just keep that in mind, that there are some great people in these places. Don't let the fact that, I mean, I know that I'm going to be moving to some parts of North Florida in the near future. And when that happens, I'm going to have to deal with the methamphetamine and the opiates a lot more than I will down here. Now, in Naples, Florida, where I live, you don't have that worry that somebody's going to break into your house or somebody's going to steal something from your car because they're on drugs. But it is, a lot of people have said on my channel that these problems are everywhere. In other words, there's a general sense of lawlessness out there, and it's increasing everywhere. And that is true, but some areas are better than others. At least if you're living in a rich area, the rich people have money to afford their drugs, so their drug addiction doesn't turn into crime and robbery and theft. And that's something that you do have to realize about Florida, is that just because it's not affecting you doesn't mean it's not there. In Naples, Florida, I know that the cocaine and the marijuana is a huge thing. People are addicted on these drugs, and you're not going to notice it, but a huge percentage of the population use these drugs, and you're not going to notice it. Now, you move to a rural place, you're going to notice it more because people need that money more desperately, and they have to do different things to get that money, so you start to notice it more. But that doesn't mean just because an area doesn't show symptoms of a drug crisis that a drug crisis isn't going on. A lot of times people are really able to mask their symptoms because they're so wealthy. I think it's a personal outlook type of thing. Like, I would not be afraid to move to North Florida and be surrounded by people using heroin and meth, because I am not. I'm in Naples now. There's cocaine, there's marijuana here, and I have never been tempted to use it. I've never done drugs recreationally, and I'm not going to do it. I haven't done it here. I'm not going to do it there. A lot of people, it's an escape from reality. To me, that's a really weak personal mindset. I think people need to be mentally strong, and if you go to drugs to escape the reality of your problems, that is a weakness. That is a mental weakness. You need to face your problems sober. You need to be ready to tackle whatever problem you are. And to me, people who use drugs recreationally are weak-minded in that they don't want to face the reality of their situations. That's my personal opinion, and I don't feel that it's going to affect me to be around an environment. So if you're family, you're raising your kids, you're going to school, and you're thinking about moving into one of these rural areas, the question that I would ask myself is not, because there's drugs here just like there are in the rural places. I would not ask myself, are there drugs? I would ask myself, are my children, who I'm concerned about going into the school systems, do they have the mental power? Are they mentally weak where they're going to be susceptible to wanting to escape their problems? Or have I built into them a personality where they're not going to try to escape their problems, they're going to face them head on? I went to school with a girl who was wealthy. We were really close friends. When I say wealthy, I mean this girl had a future ahead of her. And at 16 years old, she died from a drug-related accident. And this girl had the world in front of her. I mean, wealthy family. Why did this person in this situation need to resort to drugs? Physically, she had no ailments. Mentally, she had no ailments. And why did somebody who didn't even have an economical situation or any type of family stress, living the perfect suburban life, end up dead from drug-related accidents, when people who are really out there struggling are able to have the composure not to do that? I just had a friend try to explain to me, we're having this semi-sad conversation, he tried to explain to me how you don't know what people are really going through even though they live the perfect suburban life. I tried to understand it and I couldn't. If you're concerned about your kids using drugs, look, the world in general is filled with drugs. If you're looking for trouble, you're going to find it. If you mind your own business and live a quiet life, it's definitely not going to find you. You have to find it. And as far as the drugs go in Florida, if you have kids, I went into elementary, middle, and high school here in Florida, and already in middle school, I knew kids that were using heroin. Now, I tell a lot of my friends who have kids in the school system here in Collier County that in middle school there was already kids using heroin, and they just shrub it off like, oh, that's not possible, that doesn't exist. But I know for a fact when I was in middle school, already there were kids using heroin in middle school. Teach your kids how to go fishing. Take your kids camping. They live so protected and in front of their TV screens and in front of their cell phones that they have no real life experience. Eventually, you're going to lose that control over your kids. They're going to be around kids who are going to have drugs. They're going to get a car. They're going to get a job. They're going to eventually run into the environment. And actually, in school, they're going to run into that environment behind your back. So, if your kids are absolutely unable to fend for themselves, they don't know how to camp, they don't know how to fish, they don't know how to do anything, they don't know how to manage stress. I mean, playgrounds back in the 1900s, people would break their neck and break a leg at a playground. Today, parents are afraid to let their kids go outside. One thing you do notice about North Florida versus South Florida, which is wealthier, is North Florida, you will see kids swimming in lakes by themselves. You'll see like a 7 or 8-year-old kid walk to the lake and go fishing, no parents around. These kids are self-sufficient. These are not, I don't think these are the type of kids that are going to end up ruining their lives or ending up on drugs. They know how to handle themselves. They're 14, 15 years old and they have a legitimate social relationship. They'll have a boyfriend, they'll have a girlfriend, they'll have friends. They're in the neighborhood, they're fishing, they're going out in the woods. They're living a real childhood, and I think that helps kids stay away from all that drug. And they're more social and they have lives already, you know? They know how to make decisions. They know how to avoid risk. Some of these kids are almost adults already, and they have absolutely no life skills. This is my video, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I'm not trying to talk down on my state of Florida. I'm just giving you guys the information. If you're thinking about moving to the state of Florida, a lot of the questions that I get here are, you know, you're moving to Florida or you're relocating throughout Florida, and you want to know more about the areas, you know, crime, schools, and all that. I'm just trying to give people that information. I did notice that in North Florida, a massive percentage of the people, I don't want to put numbers out there because I don't have a statistical calculator, but a massive percentage of the people that I spoke with have relocated from South Florida, either Fort Lauderdale, Miami, Naples, Fort Myers, Port Charlotte. A massive. I mean, like, I think more than half the people that I spoke to in North Florida migrated north from South Florida. I can't tell you where you need to go. I recommend you go and you do the research yourself. I have had people tell me here in Naples that they're moving to Dixie County because of how great it is. And I went to Dixie County, and what I saw with my personal eyes was like, wow, I would not want to live here. I don't like this place at all. It was, in my opinion, horrible. However, somebody else can have a different opinion, so we're all different. My advice is do your research, take a vacation. Instead of going to Disney World, go look at those small towns before you move out there and make sure that whatever place you move into is an area you like. There's a lot of areas like the Villages, Ocala, Gainesville that do have a lot of economy. You don't exactly have to be in those cities, but you can be in, you know, a 30 or 40-minute drive from those towns. Some areas are rural and they're great. They're great country people. They're friendlier than anybody you're ever going to meet. In other areas, you're going to have to worry about crime worse than in the city because people there are on drugs and they need to get money to get the drugs. So you just have to explore. I had somebody recently ask me about Sebring, Florida, which is Highlands County. I don't think that's a place to raise a family. Same thing goes for Keystone Heights, Lehigh Acres. I don't think these are places where you want to take your family. They're communities that are just barely, yes, the housing is affordable. Yes, you can get a nice house. But what happens when you walk outside of that house? Sebring, Florida is a good place to retire if you're on a fixed income and you cannot handle the snow. As far as for young people raising a family there, I don't think that's a place I would want to raise a family. The same thing goes for Keystone Heights. It's a place to retire. Their place is good because they're affordable. If you're on a fixed income, you can't be in the snow. You have to retire somewhere affordable and out of the bad weather. They're good places to retire. Sebring, you can get an amazing deal on a house. However, I noticed that like from Lorida or Lorida, I don't know how it's pronounced, I broke down out there and a guy came up to me and told me straight up, hey, dude, they're going to rob everything in your car overnight because all these people from these country towns come into town to buy their drugs, and on the way there, anything they see gets taken. So I don't think it's a place, and you'll notice open drug markets in Sebring, Florida. There's places where you can tell there's definitely environment. and I don't think it's a place to raise a family. I'm not saying they're bad places in general. I think they're great places to retire, but that's not the type of place that I would want to take kids if I had kids, for sure. I think if you're considering to move to a rural place, you definitely need some land, you need some acreage, you need to have activities, ATVs, fishing, hunting, planting, growing stuff, taking care of animals. You need a complete agenda to make sure that your children or your family is busy and that your family has things to do so that you are not falling in with the main flow of people. I mean, you can live out there and live your own life. The problem is when you move out there and you have a void of activity, a void of time. I know when I moved to North Florida, I'm working, I'm starting a business, I'm looking for opportunities to invest, work, blah, blah, blah. I'm not going to have time to make friendships with anybody or to get into whatever they're doing. I got my own agenda, I got my own plans in life. I ain't got time to mix with nobody. So if that's the type of mindset you have and you're moving to a rural area and you have a full calendar, you know you're busy, you got stuff going on, and you want to enjoy the countryside and all that, but just keep in mind that when you go to that corner store, that environment's there, and don't let yourself fall into that environment. That's all I can say. I hope you guys enjoy the video, and it's been hopefully productive for you, and that you're able to get some good information out of it. Thank you so much for watching. Jose from Florida Hood Blogs.